All right, so okay, I think I'm gonna be starting right now. So, like I said, thank you so much for coming. I'm very happy to have this weekly event here with Musa. To be introducing him more right now. But yeah, so Musa had amazing office. He had a spring week for banks. He had a lot of other internships, BlackRock City, and he had worked a lot of asset management with summer office. So he hadn't been involved in like the actual requirement of financial institutions in depth. And obviously, in that process, he had been also a lot of online tests, which today he will be talking more about, stating his experience and giving us tips to basically make the best out of them. And we're going to obviously have the Q&A session after the presentation, which he will be leading. So yeah, Musa, you can take the lead now to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Amin, for the introduction. I'm happy to come and help because I can see, I think most of you are in first year, or in first year going into second year, like you're going through the whole spring offers and just getting applications and cover letters done. And so, yeah, so my name is Musa. I'm going into my third year of neuroscience at the University of Exeter. So I have one more year left. So I'm gonna be like a 2023 grad. So because I have a fourth year. But yeah, so like in towards the middle of first year, I put in the focus of I generally just realized that like I'm really into like I like STEM. I'm a STEM person. I enjoy my course and everything, but I don't actually see myself working in a lab for too long. So like I just started looking at alternatives and like yeah, spring weeks were the best options in terms of just learning different things and learning generally. So, yeah, next slide, please. So today we'll be talking about online tests and just standardized testing, basically, and like most of them just have four major types of tests. So there's numerical, situational judgment, verbal reasoning, and logical reasoning as well. Sometimes they make logical reasoning can also be known as inductive reasoning or just spatial awareness, or there's different ways to actually phrase the last one. But yeah, so I'll break these down further. And there's depending on where you apply, different places use the same test. There's like, I think 4 popular tests that most people use. And yeah, they kind of test different things, different styles of questions. But like, I'll leave that towards the end, maybe when we have any questions. But if you have any pressing questions on like the slide, please just like speak. I don't mind. Like, let's make it conversational. So yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, so acing your tests like generally. So the first thing you need to do when you're trying to do well on an online test is it does seem very difficult to do, like especially like applying for the first time because you're just not used to like, I feel like it's something you're used to doing maybe in like GCSEs or something when you're just doing standardized testing or like math tests or like UK Maths Challenge or something like that. So like, I feel like it's something that generally like comes to you as a surprise, but they're not actually too bad to do if you practice. So it's not going to be a thing of online testing is not something you should be scared of. And like, it's like, I can understand that it can be annoying. Like I know that like a lot of people can find it quite annoying, but with enough practice, like you're gonna be able to like make it. So that's just the key point. So like, it goes back to the point, like you just need to practice because a lot of the questions and like something you'd notice is that like, I don't know if you know this or a lot of people know this, if you do one test for one firm and you do the same test for the other firm, they can literally be the same questions, like especially if you write down your solutions. I've done, I won't mention the firms, but like I've done a test for one firm and it was the same answers for the other firm. So it's just like, yeah, I just literally typed them in. And yeah, so making notes, understanding your mistakes, but obviously we'll probably try and like break into this towards the end with the Q&A. So let's try and like break it now down into like the individual like sections first. So yeah, next slide, please. So numerical reasoning. I can tell you personally, like I feel like testing is not too bad. I feel like numerical reasoning is what I normally find most difficult with online testing, because I don't know, like I've done maths at uni. I still do maths at uni for my degree. I do statistics. I've done advanced statistics. I've done maths at A level. Like I've been doing maths all my life, but like I don't think I'm a numerical person. I just kind of do it because I study science. So I'm just trying to understand like financial like questions and like models, and like because a lot of times they'll give you like balance sheets with data and try and ask you questions or ask you projections of certain things. And like, so just a lot of it like can be very overwhelming in the beginning because you actually don't know what they're talking about. But they're not as difficult as you seem when you can actually break down the questions and like actually produce the data. So actually understand the data and answer the questions. So yeah, generally most of it is analysis. And sorry for the noise. I live next to a busy street. So yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, so mastering numerical testing, they tend to just be timed. SHL, Capfinity, most providers will give you between 6 and 10 minutes to do numerical testing. Normal amounts of questions will range from like 10 to 20, but it's a thing of like, let's say I recently did one for, am I allowed to say this? Morgan Stanley, and they had 18 questions, but it wasn't like, there's accessible marks within the 18. It's not all of them that are going to be like particularly difficult to do. In my opinion, out of 18, there's going to be 8 that you can definitely just do, or there's going to be variations of the same question. So like, they're not trying to make it too difficult for you, but generally just try and be a bit careful when you're answering the questions, because it can look like, it's more daunting because a lot of times all you have to answer is it increases, it decreases, or it doesn't change. So like, especially when they're asking you about projections from the year to year, which is the common question they ask you. They'll show you graphs, they'll give you revenues, they'll give you balances, they'll give you tax, and just be like, okay, the forecast from year 3 to year 6, what happened? Increased. What do you expect to happen from the trend from year 5 to year 8? It will decrease because you can see that it's going down. But yeah, a lot of it is just like, it's not as difficult as it does seem. But like, again, practicing with things. Oh, question? Let me.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are we going to have a Q&A session at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So yeah, so a lot of it is just like practice again, because if you've done job test prep, like if you've done enough of if you purchase the spring week, and like also purchase it with your friends, like I purchased it with friends. So like, just find 4 people at your university. You don't necessarily even have to be good friends. You can just be like, okay, can we share? There could be people on this call, people on LinkedIn, just be like, do you guys want to split it? And it'll work out to be like, what, £8 per 4 people, and you can just share a spring week pack. And like, it makes it much easier when you can just log in, because it can be a bit pricey if you just do it by yourself. So just find a couple of friends that are also interested in like spring weeks, and just put some money together in and like get a testing pack. And when you do practice the testing,
they're all themselves, if that makes sense. So
when you practice the what's it called? Sorry, I lost my thinking. When you practice the questions on like job test prep, you'll notice that it's the same format as the questions that they'll ask you on the thing. So like, you become so used to the type of questions that they'll ask that you're just used to it. And the more and more practice you have, the better you'll just become. Like, it's like, I've spoken to MDs and stuff like that, and they've literally just said it's one of those things where you don't think of everyone has the capability of passing the test. It's like, it's nowhere as intense as like what you study at university in any way. It's just like practice. But yeah, and yeah. So, and don't also answer wrongly. That's the main one with the recognizing your pattern of mistakes. If you don't know the answer, skip the question because it acts against you overall. So if you're not sure, just leave it blank. And most testing will allow you to skip to the next question. So never answer if you're not sure. But yeah, next slide, please. Situational judgment. This is actually my favorite of all the testing. I love situational judgment. Certain places only do situational judgment tests now because they're kind of trying to get rid of the whole, some places are trying to get rid of the whole numerical, verbal, inductive reasoning aspects to just try and make it more fair, because you can be a really clever person, but you're still just bad at tests. So like a time test especially. But situational judgment basically is just to find out if you're a good fit for the role. And they've become really clever in the fact that your numerical, verbal, and inductive reasoning sections of your test will take like 5 to 6 minutes to do. Like altogether, it would be like 15 minutes. Your situational judgment aspect could take you 20 to 40 minutes. I literally did one like last week. So like it was 40 minutes out of the whole hour I spent was situational judgment. They're just going to ask you a lot of questions like how you'd respond to colleagues asking you certain questions, if people come to you to ask you questions about work, if the MD sets you work. A lot of times now, they structure it in such a way where it looks like you're in a pretend inbox. So if you're using like a testing, if you're being tested with like SHL, and I think SHL is like Morgan Stanley, Royal Bank of Canada, Scotiabank, Nomura, but places like that I think are SHL. And like they'll just ask you, okay, a question like, I'll break this down further in the question and answer. You guys need more. But they'll ask you like, okay, someone comes to you and they're very stressed. Sorry, they want to go, it's a Friday evening. They have a social event to go to with their friends and family that they've been planning for a week. Your VP in your team assigns you work to do immediately. What do you do? So it'll tell you, advise them to go, advise them to do it tomorrow, or tell them to stay in. The answer is just going to be to advise them to stay in and finish the work as soon as possible. So like, it's more to just find out if you're fit for the role. And I think this is one of the main things that they actually, firms such as like, when I tested for like JP Morgan and stuff like that, if your situational judgment doesn't match with your role, you're not going to be shortlisted. So if I applied for IBD and they use Pymetrics as a test, if my work personality doesn't match IBD, you will not be shortlisted for the next stage. And like, yeah, some people take it very seriously. So if I'd argue it's the most important one. And just think about it logically. Like, don't answer the way you think they want to answer. You have to give like a balanced approach of actually being, what would I do in that situation, versus actually thinking of, you have to find the right balance between being honest and saying what's expected. Because if you go the route of just saying, I'll work hard, I'll do everything that they ask me, if I have time for it, there's going to be questions like, if you have time for events, would you go? What would you do at this time? You have to be very honest with like to yourself. Okay, if I have a lot of work to do, I probably would not go for an event. That's optional. But like, yes, you should be honest. And yeah. And next slide, please. So yeah, so it's just questions like, you're doing an internship in a bank and the software systems you've never used before, you have to submit a task, the deadline is soon and you believe you won't be able to deliver it. What do you do? They'll give you like 4 options here. I'll allow you guys to read it, but based off, this is the first time I'm reading this as well. Number one, you wouldn't go to the managing director for anything. So that's very, very much out of the question. You have to do like a process of elimination. So number 2, try your best to learn the system and produce the best quality. That's a good answer, but you have to be like, okay. You think that would be the right answer, but you have to hold on. Number 3, you should never tell anybody that you can't do the work without trying. So that's already wrong, because you're not showing, it goes back to the competencies. You're not showing that you're resilient. You're not showing that you have problem solving. You're not showing that you're resourceful. So number 4 is ask an associate on the same project to help you, which is the right answer. Like, you should always ask your colleagues, or your colleagues that are just above you, or maybe in a different desk, to ask you. So you'd go to an associate or a senior analyst, imagine, and they'll tell you you're an analyst in the situational judgment test. So you'd go to someone that's like within a year or 2 years or 3 years of you. You wouldn't go to like the vice president on your desk and be like, can you please explain how to use the system? So that's not something you do. So yeah, so number 4 would be the right answer, but you have to just gauge your thoughts. Some people, you think that a lot of people would actually pick 2, but it would be 4. So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so general tips. Ignoring the situation. Always think about the situation. Something that helps me with situational judgment tests. I wasn't good at them initially, but I became much better. Like, actually, like, they're not timed. Sit and think, what would I actually do? Like, I always, like, it's weird, but like, whenever I have a scenario, I kind of just sit and think, okay, so if I was actually doing this situation, because they're gonna give you, and situational judgments have become so, I don't know, they've become so hard. They've become much harder than they were, because they now give you like 4 options, and out of the 4 options, 3 of them will be good. But you have to just pick the best one out of all of them. So just go with what you feel, because again, like, there's no point in, if you answer the way you think they'd want you to answer, you would likely not actually like score well. And because they kind of do it by like, you align with the role. So ask your colleagues for different things. That's not really a very good task generally as well. Telling your manager that you can't do something is also not. Never just say, I can't do it, and I don't know what to do. And just always make sure that, like, with the 4th point, in all your work situations that they'll give you, always make sure you prioritize your deadlines. They're going to give you a lot of questions about, there's an extracurricular activity here, there's a meeting here with different banks, there's something interesting happening with like exchange traded funds, BlackRock is now doing something about Bitcoin, and you feel like it would give good value if you went to the event and learned something, then went back to your bank to talk about it. But like, it will tell you in the prompt that you're very busy. So like, your answer is, you have to manage your time better and be like, I will do it next time. That is the answer. I will do it next time. And you explain to your manager that you can't do this right now. And obviously, you always explain, there's going to be a lot of question about prioritization. Always explain to your line manager or your associate or the person managing you that these are my objectives and these are my availabilities. So never just promise to do too much. It sounds weird because I'm trying to explain it like you're actually doing the job. But yeah, never promise that you can do things, because they'll tell you, oh, you have capacity to do this at the end of the day. Don't take on too much as well. So it's a balance. But yeah, next slide, please. Verbal reasoning. So verbal reasoning is just understanding material and like how effectively you can absorb information when you're reading, and like different pieces of text, and they tend to be true, false, or not given, or you can't conclude on an answer. So these don't actually tend to be, in my experiences, these don't actually tend to be finance focused. They're actually just very random, like segments, sections, like out of things. All the tests I've done so far, some could be about dogs, some could be running about your business. Certain firms, like I think HSBC, NatWest, the like traditional British banks, will make it like into like finance related. but like most other people just kind of make it general. They'll give you something about a startup somewhere in the US, and you kind of just answer the question. But with this, then I think it's going to be on the next slide, but like it just goes back to it. Like I feel like with spring weeks and just with life generally, just build up a habit of just like reading generally. Like I don't like to read. Like I can bet money that I don't like to read more than most people on this call. But like spend a day like learning, spend like I don't know, 20, 30 minutes every day, or like, actually that's a lot, 15, 20 minutes, like read something, read articles, read the Financial Times, read books that you're interested in, and just generally try and work on like your speed of reading and scan reading up to the point that like your scan reading becomes very good. I don't tend to read. I just kind of like, I can scan read very well. So like when I'm trying to look for information, I can do it very quickly. So the more you read, the easier this will just become when you're trying to pick out information. Also be able to highlight, like there's a highlight function when you're doing tests. Like when you highlight the words you're reading, highlight them. If this is important, just keep like your mouse highlighted on it, then go back to it. But yeah, so next slide, please. So yeah, I would just say read, like read as much as you can, like articles, and it doesn't have to be finance related. It could be something you're generally, if you're a football fan, I would read football like articles. If you're someone that's into like history, there's lots of like blogs online that you could read. Nice big words, and there's a lot of like, I don't know, there's just a lot to read actually, and like just start like understanding. And I think that's actually just the best way to do well on verbal. Just read more and like practice on like your speed of reading. You wouldn't notice it at the beginning, but if you inculcate reading bit by bit every week, you will become quicker at reading. And university also makes you quite good at reading as well. If you're like something, if you're doing an essay-based course. Yeah, next slide, please. So inductive reasoning. So I explained how I find numerical the hardest for me, but I always do the worst in logical reasoning. And a lot of times it's just about like cognitive tests, like shapes, identifying patterns, predicting the order, what's wrong with what's in common with like different images. But again, this is not something, I'd argue this is not a skill you have. You just need like websites such as the job test prep to actually just practice. And like their explanations when you get it wrong make so much sense that you learn how to answer them. So you they'll teach you the patterns. But the thing about logical reasoning is that like the more questions you see, they're just repeated. So like again, like this one is the most repeated. Like if you've done a couple, like they tend to all be the same. You'll notice that there's sometimes all the lines are straight, then one is like sideways. Same things with like triangles, boxes, and stuff like that. But it's not something to worry about as much, I'd say, because I think quite a lot of banks like focus on having, if you come out with like very good if you come out with very like good scores on the other sections and you're not too good on this one, I shouldn't think they actually pay too much attention on this one, to be honest. So like, it's just something that's always there, I think, just for formality. But yeah, it's just, you have to also try your best and just, because I think some banks go for balance rather than being high. So if you have, again, I'm just saying it because I know this from Morgan Stanley, I think, if you have high numerical and high verbal, but low situational and like average logical, they'll just be like, I don't want you. They kind of want you to be like good at all four to be like, to move on to the next stage. But yeah, next slide. Yeah, and so yeah, there's different practice, like there's free practice materials online, obviously, but like, again, they are available, but I wouldn't say they're the best thing. Like I would highly just suggest like using job test prep. Like the questions are very much similar to what you actually get. The solutions are good. The spring weeks pack is excellent. Like you'll learn a lot. You'll be able to do so much. And like, yeah, just share with a friend. It might be expensive. Like I think it's expensive, but like if you share with 4 or 5 people, it's gonna be like £6, £8. It's not gonna be that much. So it shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, so we'll start the question and answer session, I think. I think that's the next slide. And obviously, like it doesn't have to be about online tests. You can ask me questions about this generally, like my experiences so far as well. So yeah. Questions?
Yeah, Alman, you can go.
So hello, Misa. So I've heard that you got spring internship with Goldman Sachs. I was just wondering, what division was that in?
So the divisions were, what's it called? What were they? There were 4. There was tech/engineering. I didn't do that. There was global markets, which I applied to. You get to apply to 2. There was global markets, IBD, tech/engineering, and
So operations.
I can't remember the last one actually.
I
But
think,
IBD. Huh?
I think it's legal or operations, something like that.
Yeah, it's operations. That's the last one. Yeah, I think I applied to operations and global markets. That's what I did.
So I'm just wondering, for your spring week applications, were you mainly applying to companies that were doing markets, or did you also apply to like asset management, like BlackRock and stuff?
uh, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I applied to everything. Like I applied to different things at different places. Odd fact, actually, for Goldman, I wasn't given, what I was placed on was not what they gave me. I was placed in global investment research, which I didn't apply for. But I mean, I don't ask questions. So that's what I don't know. It's a bit weird. It's kind of just what they have available at the time, to be honest. But yeah. But so I did some investment management, RWC. I just applied to like different things. I didn't know what I wanted to do in first year. Now I kind of realized after I did online tests, it was the JP test. It was the parametrics for JP and Blackstone that allowed me to see what I was actually going to be good at, if that makes sense. But yeah, continue. Next question.
Yeah, you can
My
go.
results like towards the end. I have them down, so. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Owen, you can go if you want.
What's the next question?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So basically, I have 2 questions. So the first question is regarding the cover letter. So like companies like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, they don't require cover letter, but will you still submit one? Like show your effort. And my second question is, in the job test prep, do you focus on like doing the test like in the company, or do you focus on the question type, like logical or numerical? Thank you.
Okay. So cover letters is firm dependent. Goldman, definitely. You need a cover letter. No questions asked. But it's not really a cover letter. It's just going to be 300 words about like why Goldman or what skills do you have. So obviously, like in hindsight, something I do know about Goldman, especially like when you guys, like if you speak to anybody, and like this goes to everybody, if you apply to Goldman, it says you're allowed 3, but the 3 are considered in the same cover letter. Literally, if you know what you want to do, just apply to that one. Because I was in a situation where I applied to 3 things, and I have friends that applied to 1 thing, and my friend has done his interviews. I was waiting. For like someone, I was still waiting. I was just like, because I think they take, if you know what you want to do, don't bother applying to other things. So don't bother like taking more preferences, if that makes sense. But yeah, so then your second part of the question with the job test prep, just practice everything. Like put in some time, put in some time like towards the beginning when you're getting used to it. Like put in like 30, 40 minutes, like 30 minutes to an hour, like every day. Yeah, I put it in like 30 minutes. Like just do one by one and like do it for a while, because spring, I wouldn't rush spring weeks. Like I would, it's September now. I'd spend the rest of the month just like practicing. Then I would apply like first week of October if I was you, because there's no point in applying early. Well, they say applying early is good, but like I've also seen the converse, like that it's not necessarily as good as they make it seem. First time firms like Goldman, if it's not enrolling, then it's not as good. But yeah, so just focus on everything. What's the next question?
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. No problem. What percentage?
So I noticed that a lot of the companies that you applied for were banking firms, and I'm interested in consulting, and I was wondering if they had the same tests for consulting firms.
So what kind? Okay, so you're lucky. My sister is a consultant, so I know about consulting. So what kind of consulting like firm are you going to? Like strategy, management, like what kind of?
I'm open to management and strategy at the moment.
Management and strategy. So like I'm guessing you're looking at like Bain, McKinsey, BCG.
More the big four.
Oh, the big four, okay. So with them, there's a lot of focus on being like, I applied to Deloitte, I remember this. Like, I'm not as big of a fan of some of the more traditional, like not traditional, but like some of the more, so like the big four, NatWest, HSBC, like I'm not a big fan of the way their testing works, because I just feel like they try to push this whole immersive experience. Like when you go on the Deloitte test, the NatWest test, like they try and make it into a whole thing where you spend 2 hours doing like things that you could do in like 2 minutes. But Barclays as well. So it's similar, it's just similar types of tests. But with the big four, the way you had verbal, numerical, situational, they're all going to be heavily focused on the role. It's not going to be like random. Whereas like if you went to like banking firms, like they can actually just ask you random things. SHL, different providers will just give you random things to do. But with the big four and consulting, they will just ask you, it would be very much like businessy, analysty, like numbers, projections. You have a presentation here. They'll give you like a pretend slide deck as well. Like, and you have like 5 resources to pick between to make like informed answers as well. So like, it's a lot more like intense for those firms. Firms like BCG only do like game-based assessments, which I really like. Those are my favorites. BCG does game-based assessments. I think McKinsey's SHL maybe. Not too sure. I didn't apply to any. But I know BCG's Parametrics for sure. So yeah, those are the kind of things they do. The more, I think they're called strategy consulting roles, the more like similar to banks they are. Versus the big four are more like accounting. So it's going to be like, yeah.
So how would you like prepare for these tests in consulting firms? The same way?
No, actually, I wouldn't think so. I would spend some time. Job test prep still would help, yes, but I would actually spend some time reading around the role, if that kind of makes sense. If you, there's probably, so like, I know one thing you're gonna know for sure, and you can quote me on this, like, there's gonna be a question about, there's a client in the US that wants to expand their business, or like they're this thing somehow, and you're trying to consult them. They'll give you like a fake YouTube video. They actually take time to like make prop ups, like big ups to them. They'll give you like a fake YouTube video. They'll give you a presentation. So like actually try and like read like actual news and like what consultants do, and like there's a lot of practice like on YouTube is your friend with consulting. There's a lot of like case study practice. So just get used to like the mindset of thinking like a consultant. So I think YouTube, like integrating YouTube into it would really help.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, so we have two questions in the chat, basically about like the benchmark, which is basically what score would you get to actually advance to the next round.
That is a good question. So, well, they say that they don't. Would it make? Oh yeah. So they'll just say that like some firms just say you scored very highly in these two. This is my usual score. You scored very highly in numerical and verbal. You are a good fit for the role. You scored above average, well above average for two things. You're a good fit for the situational judgment test and the good role, and your inductive reasoning needs a bit more improvement. That's my thing, and I get progress. So but obviously it depends on different things. They might feel like your test is, some people will reject you very quickly based off your test. Some people will not. So again, I like to use Morgan Stanley because it's the most recent one in my head. Morgan Stanley will take a week. They'll actually review everything before they get back to you. Royal Bank of Canada will reject you immediately. You'll close the test and in 5 minutes you'll get a rejection. So yeah, some people just use it as a cutoff. Some people don't look deeply into it. They just kind of use it to sort out if you're good or if you're not good. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. But I don't know. I don't think they make the actual percentages available to you. You don't know what you score. You don't know how many things you score. They're just going to give you a short blurb of if you did well or if you didn't. How do you structure your motivational question for Goldman? If you guys are on SEO London, paragraph 1, what works for me is paragraph 1. Hi, I'm Musa. This is what I've studied. This is what I'm applying for. Things you like about Goldman. You find so second paragraph goes to being okay, what interests you with the role. If you're interested in global markets, what about global markets? I'm keen on fixed income. I am keen on learning about emerging markets. What makes global markets the best fit for you? You have to prove in the second one why you'd like it. Then you also have to now integrate the skills you not skills necessarily. Integrate the competencies you need for the role in the second one, not necessarily the skills you have. So integrate why global markets is good for you, why you have those competencies for the role, and what you'd like to learn. Always end it with I would like to learn more about this. I would really like to learn more about emerging markets. I would really like to learn more about commodities. I really like the fact that the scheme is the summer internship is rotational. Goldman's rotational for nine summer internships. So you can rotate on different desks: FX, futures, commodities, EFX, stuff like that. So what makes it unique? But obviously do your research. Make it very punchy. Don't waffle, because you only have 300 words. And the last paragraph is just what makes you different? Tell your own story. What have you done that's interesting? Have you lived in different places? Have you started any businesses or businesses, societies that you do, stuff you bring in unique insights. I'm the social secretary for the African Caribbean Society. I'm the president for the African Medical Students Association. I'm very passionate about Black empowerment. Anybody that I think if you see my CV, you'd very much be able to tell okay, I'm quite into this. So I always talk about different projects that I do. The last one, so that makes it interesting. I've made a mentorship scheme. I've I've spoken with different people I helped lead like Black History Month, like just bringing interesting things that you've done. My friend, like who's currently like there for investment banking, she just talked about like her cheesecake business. So yeah, like her cheesecake business has taught her a lot of competencies. And the person that interviewed her was like, I love cheesecake. And she was just like, yeah, great. But like just make it you. The last paragraph, just make it you. Not too long though. Just a bit like interesting. But yeah, that's how it answered it. That's how it's structured. What's the next question? Owen?
Go ahead, Owen.
Oh, okay, sure. So my question is that because I'm interested in IBD, right? So in the interview as well as the cover letter in the second paragraph, do I need to ready to write a deal, for example, Goldman Sachs, like a recent deal that Goldman Sachs have? Do I need to write that?
Yeah, but yeah, you would do that. Like that would be something you should do already, because if you're doing IBD, you should be able to tell them like, I'm really interested in IBD, and they'll be like, tell us about a deal that you've been monitoring or something. And lots of the details are like not public, but like tell them something interesting that like they would like to see. And I think that's the way they catch you out a lot. Other questions that they could ask you for about with IBD would be, what are the challenges Goldman is facing current? Like it's a really weird question, but like I've noticed, like I think 2 or 3 firms have asked me, what are the challenges that we will face in the next 3 years? And like, it's not a question you'd think that they would ask you, but like, again, just you focus on like what you can do. Like there's a lot of competition. There's increased focus on what's it called? ESG. If you're not, like now, for example, if you're doing asset management, you should know that 50% of the cash flows in the past year have been into ESG investments, for example. If they ask you what are the challenges in the asset management industry, let's talk about how a random person is able to invest into the market and disrupt it. People can just invest for themselves now. And people are now just feeling like, why would I pay a fee to an asset manager such as Goldman Sachs when I could download an app and invest by myself? You could talk about how people are like becoming much more reactive to markets. Like, so I know asset management. I don't really know IBD. That's why I'm giving you examples. But like investments are a very much long-term thing. But because of the way your smartphones are with these new investing apps, you go on it every day. You go on it multiple times a day. You cannot be able to grow your investment if you keep manipulating it, because it's something you'd put in, leave for an extended period of time, look back at it. But like, yeah, so there's lots of different challenges. Like there's different ways you can go about the answer. I remember there's one firm, I'm not gonna say this, but I think they asked me what challenges they're gonna get. I was just like, oh, you're like the people, your customers do not think you're like sustainable, and that's the biggest, like that's their biggest reason. If you guys know the firm I'm talking about, that's the biggest reason. That's the biggest challenge you'll face, because like nobody like with the millennials coming in, younger people, everyone's like environmentally conscious. If all your offices are like high carbon emissions, you guys are still using plastic, things like that, nobody is gonna like want to invest in you. But yeah, that's another thing.
Thank you so much.
No problems.
I have another one about like the motivation question for Goldman. Like, how did you do the research?
How did you research the firms? Researching firms is difficult. It's a difficult question actually, but it's something that, very good question, but like that is what will differentiate you from most people. Your research is definitely the most important thing, especially in an interview, if you make it to interview stage. I would suggest you talk to people at the firm. Talking to somebody at the firm, or even texting them on LinkedIn for 5 minutes, you're gonna find out something. Okay, let me give you an example. you want to work in Goldman Sachs asset management, what is something unique about Goldman Sachs asset management versus other banks? Does anybody want to give me like an answer? I can like, this will help if they ask you this question. Any guesses? Yeah, Elemi?
Yeah, so Musa, I'm interested basically in asset management. So I was just wondering, because I think you did something with Brookfield Asset Management. Was that spring internship, or was that some sort of thing where you cold emailed them and then they gave you something to do in the summer? Or
How did I do this? It wasn't a formal application. It was kind of like, it was advertised through SEO. I think a lot of spring stuff like is just goes through SEO. Even if they're not a partner firm, they'll kind of be like, we're willing to take like 20 SEO people. Okay. And that's how I got it. But they'll take you in a day. I've done like sometimes they'll take you in for a day. Like I think a lot of like Deutsche Bank is 4 days. Some people's spring weeks are 2 days. My spring week at Bloomberg was 2 weeks. So like there's a varying difference. But it was 2 weeks, but like it was just like 2 hours every afternoon for 2 weeks. It was spread out like that. So it was a weird one. But
I'm just wondering, was it virtual? The Goldman Sachs one?
Yeah, everything was virtual. I haven't had anything in person. But yeah. So it was just. So what was your question? What was your question?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, before COVID, was it not virtual, or was it virtual as well?
Oh, it was during COVID. Yeah, everything has been virtual. I haven't done anything like physical. Well, nothing physical. I've had the option to go in, but I didn't want to. So yeah, that's the thing. And like researching firms, YouTube videos, really good. Talking to people on LinkedIn, really good. I don't suggest messaging a lot of people, but target people that went to your university and now work at the firm. Those are the people you should look for. Or if you're an international student, if you notice like, if I see somebody, like if I see another Nigerian person, I'm just gonna message them because I'm like, oh, okay, we're similar. We came from the same place. So like there's a lot, if it could be as little as you like the same football team, message them. But find something that you have in common with the people you're connecting with. Don't just, because a lot of people get annoyed when people actually just message them, so they will just not reply you. So you have to be very targeted. You have to be very careful when selecting who you'd want to pick. It would help. The answer with the Goldman Sachs asset management, if they ask you what differentiates it from most other banks, most other asset managers, the fact that Goldman Sachs is an investment bank on its own, it has different divisions. You have research, you have markets, you have sales and trade. Yeah, sorry, that's markets. You have private banking. There's a whole network of professionals and specialists in what they do. So, client inquiry for any client needs, the network is extensive. And basically, when you're dealing with banks such as Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. Oh, sorry, what?
Yeah, the screen just froze for a second.
Oh, sorry, I said. And so when you're dealing with an asset manager that's within a large bank, a large successful bank, always just refer to the fact that they have a network of specialists that you can draw from their skills. So yeah, that's the answer. And they'd be like, wow, very good answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Musa, I'm doing a 4-year degree award, so I'm not going to be applying to spring weeks this year. I'm going to be applying to spring weeks next year. So I'm just wondering, what would you recommend I do in order to gain work experience? What's the most effective way?
So are you going into first year now, or are you going into?
Yeah, I'm going to be starting first year at the end of September.
I would, if I was you personally, I would apply to spring weeks that don't necessarily have I would still, to be honest, like pick some of the firms that you really like or you really like the sound of, like, and I would still apply just for practice, even if you don't want to do it. Like, it's very good practice. Like I told Amin, like I have a summer internship. I've applied to other places. I am not gonna, like, even if I get accepted like onto other places, I'm not gonna accept it. I'm just doing it for practice, so that when I'm doing this next time again, because you get better and better. Like, being rejected means that, okay, this cover letter style or this style of answering the question doesn't work. So like I would still just practice by applying to a couple. And depending on like your background, like, and different things, there's a lot of like, especially like ethnicities, if you're there, there's a lot of diversity and inclusion programs right now. Deutsche Bank has them, BlackRock has them. I think Goldman may start them soon, but like there's a lot available that you can still just apply to, and they're the same as the spring week, and you can convert them. So like I would say, don't focus, like obviously in your mind you don't mind if you don't get them, but maybe pick like six or eight, and just apply to and just see where it goes.
Well, if I'm gonna apply to them, can I apply to them with my real name or what?
Yeah, no, you can't lie.
Yeah, because I'm graduating in 2025, but for the spring weeks, it says it's only for people graduating in 2024.
2025?
Yeah, because I'm doing a year abroad.
Oh, okay. No, you should still be, your year abroad is tentative, so you'll probably still put on your CV 2021 to 2024. So that's what you put it.
I think the year abroad is compulsory, so you can't.
Oh, it's compulsory. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So should I probably just cold email some small firms, asking them for work experience?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So in that case, since you have a year abroad integrated, I would just spend time now just speaking to people. Go to, if you join SEO London, go onto the commercial awareness tab, watch a couple of the old videos, find the roles you'd like to do. Like, find what's important to you. I'm somebody that like I couldn't be an IBD because I can't. There's nothing more important to me than having like a life outside of work. So I can't work in a job where I'm working long hours. It's not gonna ever work to me. So like IBD is not something I could have done. But you see, if I could go into asset management, global markets, operations, there's other roles that's just very much like closer to 9 to 5. If you do global markets, it could be like 7 till 4. So it really depends, or 6 till 4. So just try and focus on what you want to do and like keep up with news. And there's lots of books that you can actually just buy. Like, if you're interested in capital management, look into the book. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll send you like a couple of books to read. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
To have another one from Mohammed. Do firms automatically screen out an application with lower level grades?
It depends. Like, I don't know how low you're talking, but I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on the university you go to. So I think 135. Some firms do. There's a lot of firms that don't, actually. I don't think in my opinion, a lot of the nice banks will not hold you down on A levels. So far as your university that you go to is decent, you're writing a decent job, most people will still call you back for an interview. So like, yeah, some firms will, some firms won't. McKinsey has a A-level grade requirement. Nomura does. Morgan Stanley I think does as well. But yeah, there's a lot of firms that will tell you from the beginning that you have to get this amount. But again, like if I go on like I have the grades, but like if I see a firm and they're already telling you like that's something about me, and you have to like figure out like the culture for yourself. If I'm applying to a firm and I see they say, oh, something like you need a minimum of this at A level, even if I have a higher, I wouldn't apply because I'm just like, I think that's unfair. But that's a personal preference to me. So I wouldn't apply.
Okay. Do you have any other questions? I don't think we have any other questions, but I'm gonna give you a few seconds maybe. Okay, I don't think there is another question. So thank you so much, Musa. It has been
No problem.
an amazing pleasure to have you on. I'm sure that you have helped a lot of people. And as I said, the video.
By the way, I just have one question before we finish this. So Musa, so you obviously did a spring internship with Goldman Sachs. I'm just wondering, what were the most common universities for the spring
It was
internship?
diverse. It was like I'm not even referring Goldman. There's everybody from Essex to Coventry to there was something called, there was a university I've never heard of before, but like it was diverse. Goldman's fine. Like Goldman's all about like your story. JP is fine as well. Certain other firms maybe not, but like some firms were genuinely like you'll be quite surprised. And like the thing about spring weeks is that you think you're not as few as like you think. There's a lot of you. Like it doesn't seem like it, but there's a lot. There's gonna be a lot of you. So it's never gonna be a thing where like, let me think, for example, my Bloomberg internship, you think that there's very few people. There's 55 of us. There's quite a lot. Like you're just gonna be a lot of people. And like you just kind of have to be there. So it's not, spring weeks are just more like specialized like presentations, in my opinion. But yeah, how many people are typically accepting onto spring? It depends. It can go from, I've seen, what's the fewest I've been in? I've been in 5. I've been in a 2, one that had 2. That was but that was a government one. And I've been in as many as 55, 100. So yeah, depends. Depends on the band.
Okay.
But like a lot of the bands that accept a lot of people, they don't convert. So
Yeah. I think obviously like Virgin brackets accept way more than boutique banks, even though like more or less the same number of applicants. But yeah, I believe that's it for this weekly event. You have anything to say, Owen?
Don't have, just thank you so much. Appreciate for your time.
no problem. Just reach out to me like, oh, thank you. You guys should connect with me on LinkedIn or something. Like if you have any questions.
Yeah, you
Or
can
if you'd like, I'd be happy to read. I don't mind reading cover letters and giving people feedback as well. So either ways, that should help. Hopefully, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but hopefully, I think I understand I call it the game. I understand the game much better now. So yeah, hopefully that's fine. Thank you.
All right. I believe that's it. So thank you so much. Wait, is someone saying something? Romain, I won't be able to connect with you. Musa, could you send me an invite? Okay.
No problem. Well, sorry, let me quick before you end the ROM. Before I forget. I'm very forgetful. This BO UCL management. Yes. Okay. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Musa. Like I said, you can obviously connect with him, join
No
the
worries.
group chat and Cleo. But thank you so much. And for the rest of you, have a great day.
No problem. Thanks.